Buccaneers training camp officially underway.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast.
Training camp is officially underway. The rookies reported on Monday. Most of the veterans reported on Tuesday. And it is that time. The offseason is no more. We have actual football things to discuss. And Evan, I'm curious as to what the three biggest things that you're watching for during training camp. We've talked a lot this offseason about the Bucs being underrated, overlooked, underappreciated. What's Baker going to do? There's been coaching changes. There's been big contracts thrown around. There's still a big contract in limbo. But obviously there are certain things that everyone's watching for in training camp. But I'm wondering, we'll start with the biggest one. What is your biggest storyline for Buccaneers training camp?
I'm watching the outside linebacker position, man. I feel like I've beaten this to a constantly in the offseason, but even with Randy Gregory now no showing and his future with the team completely up in the air, he's been moved to the reserve, essentially an inactive list, to where he doesn't count against the team's salary cap. He doesn't count against the team's roster count. He didn't show up to mandatory OTAs. He hasn't showed up to training camp. He's a new player, doesn't know much about Todd Bowles' scheme. And I have a really tough time believing they're going to go through this whole song and dance with him, despite whatever belief they have of what he's going to be able to do for them on the field. This isn't how Jason Light and company operate. I don't think the juice will be worth the squeeze, which means Anthony Nelson is now the leader in the clubhouse for sacks on the team when you talk about the outside linebacker position at 14.5. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka has 13. Yaya Diaby in his rookie season had 7.5. Then you got guys like Marquise Watts, who had 1 last year. He's a player that we're expecting, could develop a little bit from that redshirt year, we'll call it. Then Chris Braswell, who was obviously taken in the second round this year. He's still a rookie. I'm not willing to put high expectations on what he could provide. He certainly will be a depth piece, but I don't know how much of an impact player he'll be. And then we start going into guys like Jose Ramirez, So it's a problem position, one that Jason Light might have to now bring in another veteran to try to help out. It would be it's a little similar to what maybe happened to the Lightning, for any Tampa Bay Lightning fans out there, when they got Tyler Mott right before training camp. A player pretty much said, you know what, I ain't playing this season. And then they had to bring someone else in. And you know what, the guy they brought in did a pretty darn good job, got injured. But that's sort of what I'm looking at is just, that was the biggest weakness entering for this team entering the year. And, on paper, it just got a little bit worse. So, maybe they can convince Shaq to come out of retirement, come back for another season now that they kind of shed the whole salary thing. And, hopefully Miami doesn't get too angry. But, yeah, that's ultimately that's the number one thing I'm looking at. I think it's the difference between this team, the gap between winning a division and being a Super Bowl contender. I think it lies right there.
Yeah, well, and I was just about to bring up the Miami Dolphins going through kind of a similar situation. Now, at least Shaq announced his retirement and didn't just no-show, but still, it was right before training camp starts, and then they ended up signing, Emmanuel Ogbah on Tuesday.
But at least they're familiar with him, right?
Right, yeah, and pickings are slim out there on the edge market, as you would assume, because every team's always looking for edge rushers. So, we know that the Bucs brass, Todd Bowles, Jason Light, they're high on Marquise Watts. They're high on Jose Ramirez. I know Jason Light is really high on Jose Ramirez, who, similar to Watts, kind of redshirted last year. He had dealt with some injuries coming into training camp, dealt with injuries throughout the year, and was just kind of there to learn. But yeah, this is a tough situation, and not a great look for Randy Gregory to try to endear himself to his new teammates by no showing when everybody else is there.
Yeah, I just have a really tough time believing that Gregory's going to be part of this 2024 squad. This team has such good vibes. They have such good vibes, such great team chemistry. Why add this distraction into the mix? Like, what's the worth? Not to mention, it's not like Randy Gregory is some all-world player either. I mean, he would have been a nice addition to this outside linebacker position, considering what they kind of have in the room, experience. He certainly can still get after it, but it's not like he's Micah Parsons here. You're not like losing that much. He signed for $3 million, incentives up to $5 million. Like, it's just not worth it. It's so not worth it. Just look. Yeah. You do whatever you got to do, and it could be a very serious matter for all we know. His chronic bouts with mental illness have been well stated, and I'm not here to say what he is or is not doing. Obviously he's suing the National Football League as well due to north of $500,000 in fines due to THC levels that popped up in Denver. So, yeah, I don't know what the end game is here, but he had a pretty darn good run with the Niners. They kind of, you liked what you saw there. Seemed like he was doing well, and it's just not working out right now. So thanks. Wish you well. We'll take our money back. We'll find another option, and we'll trudge forward. And, I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. I think entering this year, I said it's going to be a problem. I like the pieces they have. It's just they don't have a star. They don't have a dude who's really going to wreak havoc back there. So, Joe Tryon-Shenka, man, this is if you want to get back into good graces of your friends there in the top of this organization, certainly your coaching staff, man, you have to step up. Yaya Diaby, as a second-year player, you have to be expected to go into the double digits category. Like that's what we're really talking about, because Anthony Nelson's steady Eddie, but his ceiling, he's a high floor guy. He's not a high ceiling guy. I love Anthony Nelson, but he's not your number one. So I'm curious to see what Todd Bowles cooks up, and I imagine it's going to be a crap load of blitzes, just like he always does. And the back end might be a bit compromised, and you have to hope that this new look secondary with guys like Zion stepping up and, this slew of nickel options they have, that maybe there's a little bit of creativity going on in the all ball coach there.